Hello and good morning. On this absolutely gorgeous day of December, I think it is going to be near 70 degrees. What? Global warming isn't a thing, right? Okay, so it is the 16th of December. Continue our devotion in our Heaven and Nature Sing devotional for Advent through Epiphany. Of course, always the picture. Let me make sure it's the right one. Oh, there's a huge December 16th on there. Always a great picture. I bet you can guess why I like this picture. There's one particular reason. Could it be in this general area? Yes. What a wonderful beard. And as I look closer, it looks like they're all kind of dressed. I think it's senior citizen Harley group. I'm just kidding. Everyone seems to have vests on. That's great. But it's a celebration, right? It's a time of rejoicing, which completely goes along with what we've been talking about with Zechariah, Mary, Elizabeth, John the Baptist, Jesus coming, right? As we prepare, as we are awaiting the birth of the Messiah. Our verses today, Luke 1, 57 and 58. Now the time came for Elizabeth to give birth, and she bore a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown his great mercy to her, and they rejoiced with her. For us to ponder a verse from Romans 12, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. A short verse, but a powerful verse. Why? One reason being this. What I hear out of that, live in the moment, be with those that are joyful, and, just that realization, whether you're the joyful one or you're the one with someone that's joyful, just how contagious that can be. And then also weep with those who weep. Support one another. When you're with someone, be that arm, be that person that just sits there and supports them. The person that just sits there. So many tangents, so many stories. I'm in that story state of mind, it seems, this week. But in some of my training with pastoral care, which, again, a side note, a lot of denominations, when you go to seminary or whatnot, they don't necessarily have the pastoral care training. You might have like a class, and that's it. In fact, when I went to seminary, I think we were required to do 2 classes that had to do with pastoral care. That was the requirement. Everyone was also required to do what's called CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education, where you're a chaplain in a nursing home, assisted living, or a hospital setting, something like that. Somewhere that you're a chaplain. I've done 3 of those. You're only required to do 1 for seminary, but I've done 3 of those. And if you do 4, usually if you do 4 units of that, and it's 400 hours at least of chaplain time, or time as a chaplain, usually if you do 4, that means you're going to look to be a CPE supervisor. Lots of work goes into that. Anyway, I got off on this huge tangent. And now I don't even remember. But, all of this is saying, weep with those who weep. Just to be there with someone. And you don't have to say anything. Just being there. Just being there, sitting in silence, even if that in itself can feel like, I should say something. A lot of us might be, quote unquote, find ourselves being fixers. In times of mourning, you can't really fix that. All you can do is be there. So, side note of side note of side note. But what a wonderful verse. I mean, how many words is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that right? Yeah, 10 words. But it speaks so much. That's the power of the Bible. That's the power of so many things. Anyway, our theme today, rejoicing in God's mercy. Luke promises to write an orderly account. He says this right there, first chapter of Luke, verse 3. But I want the messy, truer to our complicated lives account. Yeah, right? When we read the gospel, do we want an orderly account? Or do we want the messy, truer to our complicated lives account? Do we want it to be real? Shoot. Another sermon. No. Yes. Another sermon, another side note. How do we approach church? How do we approach worship? How do we anymore, in a sense, feel welcome coming into a worshiping community? One of the things is, talking about the welcome. You come in, already if you go, like, let's say to a new church, the first thing is, how do they welcome me? It's not a test. I mean, some people do that, but it's not a test, but it's just like, how are we welcoming one another? Being on the side of the congregation and then on the side of, in a sense, the visitor, right? But another thing that they're looking for is people want a place that just feels real. You come in there, you don't have to say, of course, we confess the things we've done and the things we've left undone. We say that, but we don't necessarily turn to our neighbor in the pew and be like, hey, this is what I did this week, or this is what I didn't do. But those things are there. They're there for us because we know them. Connection to yesterday, we know them. And then the thing is, Jesus knows them. How? Because Jesus knows us better than we know ourselves. Gosh, that's still tugging at me here. But isn't that what we want? Doesn't that make our worship experience, our faith experience, a bit more potent when, it's like, this is a real place. I guess I'm all about air quotes today. This is a real place, and I can be real here. Does that mean we can be fully Andrew or fully your name here? That's up for debate. But, we want the real thing. The people in the gospel, Jesus, these are real people, right? These are people that are living lives that are, of course, not perfect. They've done things, they've not done things that maybe they should have done. They're real people. That's the point. That's the struggle of faith, and not necessarily in a negative way, right? Not necessarily in a negative way, but for me, that's the story of Christianity. For so long, the idea is you've got to work hard to get into the community. No, that's when the work begins. You get into the community, you say, I want to be a member, I want to be a part of this worshiping community, this congregation. That's when the work starts, but not just for the person, for all of us together. So I hope that makes sense. But see, look at that, one sentence and so many side notes. So Luke promises to write an orderly account. But you know what? We want perhaps a messy, truer to our complicated lives account. Who was with Elizabeth when she gave birth to her long-awaited child? ? With her husband, Zechariah, rendered speechless, were there others who gently encouraged her to push and to breathe? I'm sure he was holding her hand. Or maybe the custom was he couldn't be in there. Probably that's it. So anyway, who ran from the room with news of the baby's birth? How did the word spread? Was God's role in this miraculous birth obvious to all? Or was there something in the witness that made it clear that this baby was an act of God's mercy? During the long years of barrenness, did Elizabeth's neighbors and relatives weep with her? Big question. Do they pray with her and for her? Did they look for any reason, no matter how implausible, that would somehow reconcile their faith in God with this drawn out tragedy? And were all those years of questioning and perhaps even silent judgment still in their minds when the good news of this baby's birth reached them? Luke only tells us that Elizabeth's neighbors and relatives, hearing that the Lord had shown great mercy to her, rejoiced with her. And maybe that's enough. Whatever they had said about her, whatever they had tried to do for her, now they rejoiced with her. Our lives can be so complicated. Our own insecurities can keep us from truly rejoicing when another experiences the gifts of God's mercy. Today, let's listen for good news in the lives of those around us and respond with wholehearted joy. Lots to say there, but and what they somewhat touch on is, as Elizabeth was suffering, were they there to support her? Good question. But then also, now we hear that they're rejoicing. Now we hear that they're rejoicing along with her. It's a balance, though, in there, isn't it? It's a balance in there. And I think that just adds to the complication of life. Do they know she's suffering? Could they go ask? Yes. Could she reach out? Yes. All the same kinds of things that go through our heads. Imagine that. They're real people. What? I think I heard that somewhere. But isn't that today? But I'd say today, let's start and keep it going. Let's listen for the good news in the lives of those around us and respond with wholehearted joy. Let's close in prayer. God of great mercy, you invite us not only to weep with one another, but to rejoice with one another. Open our ears to hear good news in the lives of others. Open our hearts to rejoice with our neighbors. Yes, yes, yes. Amen. So until tomorrow, the theme tomorrow, a preview, bold characters. Yes. Good. Good. All right. So until tomorrow, God bless and have a great day. I rejoice in your day.